All right, get ready because we're diving deep today. You guys really threw us a curveball, asking us to unpack chapters 42 to 70 of the Book of Enoch.
Yeah, no kidding. This section, it's a bit of a whirlwind. Visions, prophecies, angels, the Messiah, even some ancient astronomy thrown in there.
Oh, yeah, totally. And one of the things that really jumped out at me right away was how much these chapters focus on the sins of the elite. The mighty kings is what they call them.
Right. And it's not just like your everyday sins, it's like abuse of power, perverting justice, that kind of stuff on a massive scale.
Exactly. And they really get specific, too, about how these kings exploited and oppressed their people.
Oh, yeah. Like their denial of God is so blatant, almost like it's manifested in how they deny basic human dignity.
And the punishments? Oh, man, the punishments they face are described in such vivid detail.
It's pretty intense, yeah. Not just suffering, but like this symbolic retribution, being cast into fiery pits because they burned with greed and cruelty in life.
Right? Like that whole eye for an eye thing, except on a cosmic scale, it really speaks to that ancient understanding of divine justice.
For sure. Like the punishment has to fit the crime, not only for retribution, but also as a warning to anyone else think of following in their footsteps.
Oh, and speaking of warnings, can't forget about those angels of punishment, the ones actually carrying out God's judgment.
Like divine enforcers. You see that concept in other religious texts too, right?
Totally. But what's interesting here is how it connects back to those fallen angels, the watchers from earlier chapters. The ones who rebelled against God.
Oh, yeah, good point. It's like a parallel. The Watchers abused their power and messed things up for humanity, and these kings did the same thing down here on Earth.
Whoa, I didn't even think about that connection. It adds a whole other layer to this idea of cosmic order and what happens when you disrupt it.
Definitely. And the consequences, both spiritual and earthly, are pretty clearly spelled out.
Yeah. But even with all these doom and gloom pronouncements about judgment, there's still this glimmer of hope, right? That repentance is possible.
Absolutely. Remember how those kings eventually admit they were wrong and begged for mercy?
It's almost like a last-ditch effort, right? But it shows that even facing divine wrath, genuine remorse, can open a path to redemption.
Totally. But it does make you wonder, is there a point of no return?
Right. Like, is there a point where, even if you're truly sorry, it just doesn't matter anymore? It makes you think, okay, so corrupt kings, angelic enforcers, and the possibility of repentance. But there's another big piece of the puzzle in these chapters, and that's the Messiah.
Oh, yeah, the Messiah. And the way it's presented here is really fascinating. He's called the Chosen One and the Son of Man. But there's this big emphasis on him existing before, like having a divine origin.
It's like a preview of how Christians would understand Jesus later on.
Definitely has its roots right here in these ancient texts.
But it's more than just where he comes from, right? It's about his role as both judge and ruler, the one who's going to bring about this messianic kingdom where righteousness wins in the end.
You really get a sense of a world transformed, where the wicked are finally held accountable and the righteous are rewarded. It's like a vision of creation perfected, where God's will is completely carried out on earth.
Almost like a utopia, but one that happens through divine intervention, not through anything we do ourselves. Which is interesting because it seems kind of different from all that emphasis on human responsibility and free will,
It's true. That tension between divine will and human choice is a constant theme throughout the Book of Enoch. On one hand, it's God's plan, but on the other, our choices matter in how we get there.
So we've got divine justice, a powerful Messiah, this whole debate about free will and destiny. But there's one more thing in these chapters that just blew me away, and it's the secrets of the cosmos.
Yeah, it's like Enoch gets this guided tour of the universe. The movements of the sun, moon, and stars are all laid out. There are explanations for things like thunder and lightning, even talks about the earth being round.
It's like an ancient science textbook written by someone who's had a face-to-face with angels.
It really challenges the way we try to separate science and religion today. In the Book of Enoch, they're completely intertwined. Learning about the natural world is learning about God's creation.
Like they saw God's fingerprints in the patterns of the stars and the way the seasons change.
And all of that sets the stage for one of the most important figures in these chapters, Noah.
Oh, yeah, no. And we're not just talking about the guy from the flood story. Remember, he's Enoch's grandson. He's directly connected to all this ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And what's cool is we get this glimpse of him as someone who's actually seeking knowledge, trying to make sense of all the signs of judgment that are happening around him.
Right. He's not just waiting for things to happen. He's trying to understand his role in all of it. It's like he's inheriting that seer mantle from his grandfather.
It makes you wonder, what did Noah take away from all this ancient knowledge? What did he carry with him onto the ark? Maybe we'll find out as we go deeper into this Book of Noah within the Book of Enoch.
I'm definitely curious to see where this goes. It's amazing how these ancient texts can still resonate with us today, even as we try to understand the universe, justice, and what it means to have free will.
Absolutely. There's so much more to uncover, so many layers to unpack, and I, for one, am ready to dive in. One thing that really stands out as we dig deeper into chapters 42-70 is how the Book of Enoch brings together this cosmic perspective with a real down-to-earth concern for justice.
Yeah, like it's connecting the order of the heavens to all the chaos we create here.
Exactly. It's like holding us accountable for that chaos, especially those in positions of power. Like, remember those mighty kings we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there are a ton of warnings in these chapters about what happens when they abuse their authority and take advantage of the weak.
It's like it's calling out systemic injustice, not just individual sins. And it's not afraid to name names either.
Right. But even with all this talk about judgment, there's still that thread of hope that things can change, that repentance is always possible.
Yeah, like even those kings facing some pretty terrible punishments, they still humble themselves and beg for mercy. Makes you think, though, is there ever a point where it's too late?
That's a question that's been around forever, hasn't it? The Book of Enoch doesn't really give us a clear answer, but it does suggest that God's mercy is there for those who truly seek it, even if it's not unlimited.
Okay, so we've got these corrupt leaders facing divine justice. But then there's this other element that I found really interesting in these chapters, this whole thing about shepherds.
Ah, yes, the shepherds. They seem innocent enough at first glance, like they're supposed to be taking care of things, but then you realize that's something much darker going on.
Yeah, they become this symbol of corrupt leadership, people who exploit their position for their own gain and don't care about those they're supposed to be leading.
And it gets even more specific. It actually numbers these shepherds, like it's laying out this timeline, almost like a prophecy about the rise and fall of corrupt regimes throughout history.
Wow. And it doesn't just call out secular leaders either. It even suggests that even those chosen by God, like the Israelites, can fall into the trap of power and stray from what's right.
It's a reminder that nobody's immune to the corrupting influence of power. It really makes you think about leadership both back then and in the world today.
For sure, it challenges us to look at the motivations of those in charge, hold them accountable, and be aware of how seductive power can be.
Absolutely. But even with all these warnings and judgments, there are still these moments of hope, these glimpses of a future where good triumphs over evil.
Yeah, like those visions of the Messianic kingdom, a time of peace, justice, and restoration.
Exactly. The text actually gets pretty detailed about what that kingdom will look like. A world transformed where the wicked are judged and the righteous are rewarded.
Like a vision of perfection where the harmony of the universe is reflected in human society.
Precisely. And that brings us back to that idea we talked about earlier, that blend of cosmic perspective and earthly justice. The Messianic kingdom isn't just some abstract idea. It's a real place where things are made, right?
Like the goal is to align our actions here with the divine order of the universe.
Right. And speaking of the universe, one of the things I find most fascinating about these chapters is how they explore the natural world. Remember all those journeys Enoch takes through the heavens?
You mean like those detailed descriptions of the sun, moon, and stars, the explanations for thunder and lightning, even the parts about the earth being round?
Exactly. It's like reading a science textbook from thousands of years ago, but with this added layer of divine revelation. The Book of Enoch doesn't separate science and religion, it sees them as connected.
Like they believed that by understanding nature, you were also understanding God's creation. It was a way to connect with the divine.
And that's a perspective I think we could use a bit more of today, that sense of wonder and reverence for the natural world.
Instead of seeing science and religion as opposites, maybe we could find ways to bring them together, to see the beauty and order of the universe as evidence of something greater than ourselves.
And all of this cosmic perspective really sets the stage for one of the most important figures in these chapters, Noah.
Right, Noah, not just the guy from the flood story, but Enoch's grandson, someone who inherited all this ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And in these chapters, we get to see him as a seeker of knowledge, grappling with the signs of judgment and trying to figure out his place in it all.
He's not just sitting around waiting, he's actively searching for answers. It's like he's taking on that role of seer from his grandfather.
And the fact that he travels to the ends of the earth to find Enoch shows just how far he's willing to go to find truth and guidance.
He's not passive, he's driven. And as we get deeper into this Book of Noah within the Book of Enoch, I'm really curious to learn what he learned from his grandfather and what he took with him into that new world after the flood.
Me too. It's amazing how these ancient texts build on each other, revealing new depths to these stories and offering wisdom that's still relevant today.
All right, we're in the home stretch now, wrapping up our deep dive into chapters 42 to 70 of the Book of Enoch. And man, what a journey it's been. Cosmic visions, prophecies of judgment, the secrets of the universe. But now it's time to zero in on the Book of Noah.
It's really interesting how these chapters bring Noah's story into the bigger picture. It's like we're getting this behind-the-scenes look at the lead up to the flood, but from a whole different angle than the traditional Bible story.
And this isn't just some random side story, right? The text actually tells us that these are revelations given to Noah. It's like he's a prophet in his own right.
Exactly. He's not just some guy who happens to be in the right place at the right time. He's actively seeking knowledge and trying to understand things.
You see that right from the start, too, right? There's this sense of unease, this worry about what's happening in the world.
Oh, yeah. He sees the earth shaking, which is obviously a bad sign, and he knows he needs to find his grandfather, Enoch, to figure out what it all means.
And that journey takes him to the ends of the earth. Talk about going the extra mile for some answers.
Seriously. It shows you that real knowledge, especially when it comes from God, doesn't just come easy. You got to work for it, you got to be dedicated, you got to be willing to step outside your comfort zone.
And for Noah, it's not just about curiosity. It's about understanding how to live right when everything around him is going wrong. He sees the corruption, the injustice, how everyone's turning away from God, and he knows something has to change.
He needs guidance, right? How to stay on the right path when the world's going crazy. And when he meets up with Enoch, he gets this deeper understanding of like the whole cosmic order, how the heavens work, the battle between good and evil.
It's like a crash course in, like, cosmology, spiritual warfare, divine justice, all in one.
Exactly. He learns about the fallen angels, where demons come from, the secrets of thunder and lightning, even the fact that the earth is round. And all this knowledge, all this understanding, it prepares him for what's coming, to protect the good stuff amidst the flood, to carry that faith into a new world.
So he's not just saving humanity, he's saving this spiritual and moral knowledge, too. It's like he's this guardian of wisdom and insights that'll be crucial to rebuild a good society after the flood.
And what's really interesting is that this Book of Noah actually dives deeper into the specific sins that caused the flood.
Oh, yeah. Like, it goes beyond what you read in the Bible.
It specifically calls out the Watchers, those fallen angels who shared forbidden knowledge with humans. And we're not talking about, like, abstract ideas here. This is practical stuff, knowledge that could be used for good or for evil.
Like, they taught humans about war, metallurgy, cosmetics, even sorcery. It's like a whole list of human ingenuity, but all twisted and used for selfish reasons.
Right, and the text even suggests that the spread of writing, especially when it was used for oaths and summoning spirits, played a role in the moral decay that brought about the flood.
Wow. That really makes you think about the nature of knowledge, doesn't it? Like, how much responsibility comes with it. It's a good reminder that knowledge can be a blessing or a curse, depending on how it's used.
It's a cautionary tale for us today, too. We have access to more information than ever before, technology that's changing so fast. But with that power comes a responsibility to use it wisely and ethically.
Definitely. The Book of Enoch, even though it's ancient, speaks to some very modern concerns. It's urging us to be careful, to question our motives, to think about the consequences of what we do, both individually and as a society.
Absolutely. But even with all these warnings and judgments, there's still this glimmer of hope in the Book of Noah, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, the text makes it clear that Noah is this beacon of righteousness, chosen by God not just to survive, but to start something new.
He's like this symbol of hope, a reminder that even when things seem darkest, God preserves a spark of faith, a light to guide us forward.
And that spark, that remnant, in Noah's case, carries the potential for a fresh start, a chance to build a world based on justice, righteousness, and a deeper understanding of God's plan.
It's inspiring, really. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Book of Enoch, what's the big takeaway for you? What will you carry with you from this ancient text?
I think it's the reminder that even when the world seems full of darkness and chaos, seeking knowledge, wisdom, and righteousness is still crucial. It's about being like Noah, striving to understand, acting with integrity, holding on to hope, and believing in the possibility of a new beginning.
Beautifully put. And to everyone listening out there, keep exploring the Book of Enoch. There's so much more to discover, so many layers to unpack. Who knows what secrets and insights are still waiting in its pages?
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery.